Oh my God, guys! I just heard a sermon. Uh, First of all, Pastor, I don't know what you did to get that word, but oh my God, that was phenomenal. Um, Today, Pastor Stephen, my pastor, um, whom I love, yes, uh, that's a bit of a joke, by the way, because he talks about John and what the Bible says about John, John the disciple whom I love. Well, I can say, uh, Pastor. No, I can say Stephen the pastor whom I love. That's a bit of biblical humor there. When Pastor talked about Jesus and how he stayed and John how he stayed, I thought back uh, to my sermon today about love and how deep is your love, and um what I uh, didn't mention was the kinds of love, not agape or any of those terms for love, but the kind of love. Uh, the Lord revealed it to me as Pastor Stephen was talking. In my mind, because I'm a preacher as well, in my mind, when Pastor Stephen's talking, I'm hearing two voices. I'm hearing Pastor Stevens coming from my computer, and then I'm hearing God. God is dropping words for me, on me, dropping and dropping and dropping. And here's the first thing he said. He said, in this part two, I need you to talk about sacrificial and artificial love. Um, Artificial love stays on the surface, like, hi, how are you? And we give people, strangers we know, like surface conversation. It stays on the surface. And he's like, with your love, with your staying, I need you to go deeper, um, because you can stay in what God has called you to stay in and it not change because you neglect to look past the problem. Staying is wonderful, staying is necessary, stepping out is wonderful and necessary, but whether you stay or step out, the one question that the Lord would have you ask is, are you going deeper? Are you solving the issue? Are you staying to grow? Are you staying to stay planted? Are you staying to solve the issue? Or are you just staying to stay? Because your pastor said to stay, so I'm going to stay. He's like, you can, God said, you can stay for a time to just stay and be faithful. But he's saying for some of you, staying will become about going deeper, not only going deeper in God, but going deeper to the issue you're afraid to face. Because some people will hear a sermon like staying, and they'll just say, okay, it'll be all stay. But as they stay, nothing will change because you can physically stay somewhere and it not change a thing because you refuse to go to a deeper issue, and you can stay and it changed everything because you made up in your mind that I'm physically staying here, but I have to emotionally go somewhere that I can't. I I have to emotionally go somewhere that God's calling me to go that I keep running from. Because the reason why we run sometimes and not stay is because if we stay, God will call us to go to the core, to go to the deeper issue. So, okay, so most of you, like, if you've been tracking with me for a while, you know that I um have had issues with pastors in the past and whatever. You know, not every pastor, but um, my dad and the pastor after that that told me I'll never be able to preach until I get out of this chair. And, uh, the pastor of my third church, who was kind and gracious and great, but the people at that church were something else. So, so I had a lot of trauma coming to Elevation, a lot of pastoral trauma. And then this thing, when Pastor Stephen started watching me and he started getting inspired and his sermon started to mirror part of what I was saying. The first time I ignored it because I thought, oh, maybe God is speaking to him because God does do that. And then the weeks, it started happening again and happening again and happening again. The first thing that I wanted to do as per my habit was, okay, this is happening to me again. This is happening to me again. I'm going to run. But but I could have done that. I could have said, "Oh, I'll just go to another church again." Like like it's happening to me again and whatever. But no, I went to God and said what was going on, and then He had to walk me through a process of saying He's not trying to. First of all, He said, God said, it is not your word, it is mine, and who I choose to put it through is not your business. And second of all, he's taking some of what you say because he's inspired by you. Stop having a canary about it and stop getting internally angry when you have no business to get internally angry. And I had to let him work on me, work through the anger, work through the trauma, work through the pain. And it was a lot of hard nights, y'all. Yeah, it was really hard. So staying, you would hear a sermon like today and say, yes, I'll stay. I'll stay in that job. I'll stay with the church. I'll stay whatever. But I'm here to tell you that staying and loving and all of that and going deeper in your love and going to a sacrificial love, a love that gives up but knows when to pull back. It it's hard. Staying is hard, and it, but the hard of staying is worth it. Sometimes stepping Sometimes stepping out is hard, but staying is harder. And in my younger years, I didn't stay. I didn't stay. Sometimes it's because the Lord moved me, and sometimes it was because I got fed up, to tell you the truth. But I've learned now staying is hard. Staying is hard. Staying in a loveless marriage is hard. Staying single is hard. Staying in a job where you don't get appreciated is hard. But sometimes within the hard, that's when God shows you who He is. And I'm going to go back to artificial and sacrificial love. Artificial love stays on the surface. Like, hello, how are you? Let's hug in church. But sacrificial love takes sacrifice, it takes time, it takes vulnerability, it takes availability, it takes all of that. You think I started doing those if if this was uh if this was 2017 when I started at Elevation, you think I could could put up elevation specific videos in 2017 and say, oh, you should do this and you should do that? No, I couldn't do that. It would just say 000. He wouldn't know who I was. And even if he did know who I was, I wouldn't have the clout that I do now. It's the time. It's over 7 years now of me watching, of me learning, of me growing. I didn't say, hey, Pastor Stephen, my YouTube is this and that. Check me out. No, I didn't even do anything like that. I'll tell you what happened. I read you the letter. No, before the letter, I sent him a book and just said, uh, I'm just sending you a gift as a present. Because every pastor I've had, I've sent them a book. Uh, for the pastor of the mega church, I did him a, a book called Letters to a Pastor, which was amazing. For the pastor of the smaller church, about like 400 members, I gave him a book of the hymns. And for Pastor Stephen, I gave him the book called Sinner's Creed by Scott Stapp because I knew he liked rock music. And then I sent him a letter because God told me after the book, then I sent him a letter because God told me to send him a letter, jump in and swim. And every step I've taken with this has been a God step. I didn't just rush ahead with myself and just said, "Oh, I'll just do this and ask for uh, promotion." And I read that first letter. Actually, the not the book letter, but the first letter I wrote to Pastor Stephen, that jump in and swim letter. It's if you go to my uh to the sermon series called Memories 1 and Memories 2, I actually read that first letter from 2019. So a year it was a year, and then I started watching, and then you know so it took time, it took clout, it took all of not clout. It took time. It took him seeing my integrity. It took him, you know, getting to know who I was for him to feel even comfortable watching me. Because I know, uh, being the kind of well-known preacher that he is, I know that he gets people probably sending him stuff all the time. This is my YouTube channel. I'm a preacher and blah 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 blah. I didn't do such a thing at all. And I never asked him and will never ask him to do anything like that. Now, if God leads in the future for me to speak at Elevation or whatever, that's a God leading. But I will never do that because you know what? God has ordained me to stay. And even if it's stay in the background, even if it's uh he gets inspiration or God's inspiration, I like to call it, from my sermons, that's fine. If God is using me for that, that's fine. And and y- and and some of you have got to get comfortable with um, being in the background, just doing that because God has ordained you to stay there. God has ordained you to be at that church. God has ordained you to be with that person. And when God says move, move. When God says stay, stay. And sometimes loving sacrificially is hard. And sometimes loving sacrificially means sacrificing a relationship. Means I have to sacrifice you because you are keeping me from him. There's a part in Pastor Sermon where he says sometimes you may have to give give him up to give your boyfriend, your girlfriend, or best friend up uh, because it's drawing you away from God. And I think um, and I can sense the staying power, sticking power is hard. And stay means building. When you stay somewhere, you build something. And running is you don't build anything. Just when things get hard, you run. And that's what's so wrong with so many things. Marriage, relationships, or whatever. People don't stay. And then if you don't stay, you don't you don't get to build things. Now, I'm not saying to stay in abusive situations or stay in horrible situations where the person is putting you down or whatever. No, but I'm saying in, in most situations, staying and you will stay and you will build something. But you run so fast, you don't get to build anything. Staying, you can see the beauty of who God is and who you are. And if you stay through the rocky times, if you stay through the storm, you will see the beauty at the end of it. So, some people, why they don't see a positive way out, why they don't see um, God's glory, is they refuse to stay. The moment something happens, they run, they take off before character can be built, before um, before understanding can be built. the more you stay, the more that can be built. Because oftentimes things have to be built in you. Sometimes staying builds character, it builds grace, it builds tenacity in you. M- Maybe you're always running because you're afraid to stay, because you're afraid to stay if things get hard. If I can't do it, I'll look stupid. But you won't look stupid. Staying, s- staying will build something in you that you won't even believe. And I'm not saying to stay when it's abusive or when it's untenable. I'm saying uh to stay in most situations, because you'll see the salvation and glory of the Lord if you stay. Sometimes you leave too quickly, you leave a friendship too quickly, you leave a situation too quickly, so God doesn't have time to foster the glory. Sometimes you're leaving when the seed is barely in the ground. You're not staying to see it water. You're not staying to see it flourish. You're not staying to see it grow. You're you're leaving because there's dirt around it. But remember, without the dirt, without the soil, things can't grow in your life. Maybe things are not growing because you won't like the dirt. You keep pushing the dirt away. You keep running from the dirt. But beneath the dirt, something is growing. Beneath all your pain, God is doing something. God is fostering something. But you keep leaving before He fosters anything. And He's calling you to stay. And He's calling you to love extravagantly. He's calling you to love people the way, in your capacity, and the way He's called you to love in that situation. And sometimes extravagant love means stepping back, and sometimes it means doing the hard thing. Sometimes extravagant love, sometimes to love like Jesus means doing the hard thing. Sometimes His love will be hanging on a cross and dying. Sometimes, um, sometimes love, loving like Jesus, means something in you has got to die. Some relationship has got to die. Some situation has got to die, and you're keeping it alive. And He's saying, this situation is not benefiting you anymore. I need to take it. I need to take the weeds away so that the flowers can grow. Because sometimes weeds look like flowers, but sometimes they're just weeds. He says, let me deal with the weeds. Stop fighting to keep the weeds, because underneath, uh, the weeds are blocking the flowers. And I need those flowers to grow. And they need to be watered, they need to be tended to. What are you looking at as weeds and they're really flowers? And what are you looking at as flowers and they really are weeds? Most times it takes asking the Lord about these things. How to love a person, how to tell flowers from the weeds, how to tell when to go and when to stay. Sometimes how deep is your love depends on how deep is your roots. Real love is not a feeling. Real love takes time, and it it takes the root it takes the roots. It takes to be planted and to stay. Um, because look at me now. It's only been about 2 years that my pastor has been watching my sermons, and I didn't even tell him, uh, hey, watch me, I'm on YouTube, and here's the link. Nope, I just said what God told me to say, and that was nothing about, uh, here's the link, here's whatever. And I don't watch the sermon and go, oh my gosh, he's doing something wrong. Oh my gosh, why is he wearing that? And come on here and be all critical about what he's doing or where sermonically he should go or whatever. When I do give suggestions, it is very careful, very thought out. I've asked the Lord, I've agonized with the Lord, I've argued with the Lord. I'm like, nope, I'm not saying that. And even when I talked about family dinner and midreach, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. When I talked about the suggestion for the segment, um, which is now a devotional. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. So I've argued, I've prayed, I've agonized over it. I've not just said, okay, that, now that I have access, I'm going to say everything I feel. Nope, no. And for me, now I have to differentiate what's an opinion and what's a preference and what's from God. Because I can't come on here and say, oh, Pastor Stephen, my opinion is this is this is this is this. This is That's not what God has called me to do on this channel. I cannot do that because that is not what God has called me to do. God has called me to preach the word to whosoever will. God's not called me to be critical of my pastor and whatever. And it does give me the right because I know he's watching. Now I can be critical and say whatever. No, because I love him. No, no, no. Love has nothing to do with being critical or making the person who you think or suggesting what you think they should do. Love is accepting the person exactly the way they are and letting God change them from the inside out. And it's not your opinion and it's not your preference, it's His purpose in that person. Oh, it's not your opinion nor your preference, it's His purpose for that person's life. And that's what your love should further. It's not your opinion nor your preference, but it's His purpose. So it's not my opinion nor my preference, but it's His purpose. And if anything I say doesn't uh, doesn't bring forth His purpose, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it because it's not um, it's not my opinion nor my preference, but it's His purpose. So, guys, thank you so much. And that's the issue, because sometimes we say it's love and whatever, but it's our opinion and our preference. And even if it's God's opinion, or even if it's God's word or whatever, unless the person is ready to receive it, unless God has um soften the person's heart or tilled the ground of that person's soil in their soul, they won't hear it. They won't hear it. So if you walk up to someone and say, hey, you shouldn't be sleeping with your boyfriend, you should be married, unless unless God has tilled the soul of that tilled the soil of that person's soul, they won't hear you. Like, so even if it is in God's word or what God says, unless God has prepared the person, unless God has ordained the person, you to speak into the person's life, they won't hear it. So some of us are too quick to say our opinions or bring the word of God to someone who is not ready for it. Sometimes people just need our arms. People just need our love. People just need our people just need our presence. They need us to be there. They need us to put their arms around them because most times people feel bad enough already. People know what they're doing wrong. People need like extraordinary compassion, and I think that's what the world needs before we fix any issue. Like I've said, and call forth the King. Before we fix any issue, people need our love. People need our compassion. People need our grace. And a lot of people think it's weak, but it's not. It's strong. If you show people grace when they deserve condemnation, it's strong. If you show people love when they deserve hate, it's strong because it's the will of God and it's different. They'll be like, what's in that person? What's in you? Everybody's turning away from me, but you're running to me. What's in you? And you can say, it's Jesus. It's Jesus. And that's when they'll see the Jesus in you. And that's when the Christ in you will shine through. And that's when His love will heal, His love will restore, His love will keep. Thank you guys. His his love his his love will keep. When I say His love will keep, I mean His love will cause you to um will, will keep you from yourself. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. His love will stop you, keep you from going down a path that you can't. You it will be hard for you to recover from. Not that you can't recover, because you can recover from from anything with the help of the Lord, but He will keep you from stuff that you'll have to recover from. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you. Take care. Oh, before I sign off, I was reading the story of Stephen in the Bible from Acts 6 and 7. And if you, oh my gosh, that is such a great story. Um, he was he was selected by by his group of Christians to share the gospel, but they didn't like what he was sharing, so um, they decided to stone him, which means throw heavy rocks at him until he died. So, but but before they stoned him, he was so gracious to them. He was like he was like, Father, be with them. Don't judge them harshly for this and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, if he could only be like Stephen from the Bible. People are throwing stones at us, and instead of wishing ill to them, we wish love and we wish grace. And that is sacrificial love if I've ever heard it. If you want to read the story, it's in Acts 6 and 7, the story of Stephen. It was so awesome. And I'm like, Lord, help me be like Stephen. Thank you guys. Bye. Could you imagine if we felt like that? Like if when instead of uh taking it personally and getting all happy when people said something bad to us online, we would just say, Father, uh, Father, um, don't hold this against them and all that. Oh Lord, please help me get there. I'm not there yet. I'll talk soon, you two. Thank you. Bye.